more than a month after President Muhammadu Buhari assented to the Petroleum Industry Act, there are indications that the Act may be going back to the National Assembly for amendments. This is because President Buhari is seeking to amend the Petroleum Industry Act, and he made the request in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, at Tuesday's plenary. President Buhari explained that his proposal became necessary following a review of the administrative structure of both the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. He listed the 3 areas of the Act he sought to be amended to include the appointment of non-executive board members, removal of the Ministries of Petroleum Resources and Finance from the boards of the 2 institutions, as well as the appointment of executive directors, while the PIA provides for the appointment of 2 non-executive board members. President Buhari is seeking an expansion of the membership. The amendment, the president expects, will increase the number of non-executive board members from 2 to 6, ensuring that each region has a representation. Well, joining me to talk about this is strategy consultant Dipo Oyewole and in-house analyst Obaniyi Akinwale. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, it is. No, there's no doubt that laws, get amended time after time, and but this is coming barely a month after it was assented to by the president, and the question is been raising divergent reactions, and I'm wondering what this says, or what implication, or what you have seen, or what you have read from this decision by the president to amend it to ensure that it reflects certain things, which we'll delve into much later.
Well, for me, I asked the question when the statement came out that it was going to seek for an amendment, that the question is, even though the issues raised there make sense, why are they coming as an afterthought? Because it's been on his desk for a very long time. We've been talking about the PIB for decades, which has now become the PIA, thankfully, because the PIB was practically part of our vocabulary in this country. So the question now is, why is it coming as an afterthought? But for me, I would say that we're here now, and the reasons that they're giving make sense, like I said, and hopefully they are the reasons why they want them amended, saying that they want more inclusion in terms of representation from all the geopolitical zones. So yes, we are hoping that it is true and that the reasons are legitimate, and we will see effective management in terms of the administration of these 2 organizations.
Right. Let me come to you now, Obaniyi. Inclusion is the reason why the president is calling for this amendment. Like he pointed out, this issue of Petroleum Industry Act, before it became an act, had been on the front burner for a long time. And all of a sudden, it's seeming like an afterthought. Is that what you think it is, from your point of view?
Absolutely, it's not an afterthought. For me, it's a reflection of what country we find ourselves in. I remember vividly that Senate President Bukola Saraki said he started this petroleum industry bill that Buhari refused to assent to. And you remember this current administration, the current Senate and the National Assembly, as it were always coming out to say they will ensure that the oil sector is properly deregulated. And just like as every parent that sends his kids to school, the only way you know whether your children are performing or not is when they present their results. And this is the result that the National Assembly has provided to us, which shows clearly that the problem we have in this country is not a law. And I've said it at every level, that who are the people that made this law and who are the bureaucrats that these people employ. I'm sure the Senate President has a legal advisor, the Cerebral National Assembly Working Committee, and what have you. So if our National Assembly, after cooking this thing from the 8th Senate to this 9th Senate, could actually come out with a bill that the executive could still find loopholes, that we all agree that is essential. And I don't want to be too abrasive on this current government, but I will say that for me, the PIB is what we call DOA, is dead on arrival. Because if, really? The president has every right to seek for amendment, and he could pass the law. So there's a school of thought that will say, why would the president have rejected it outrightly that this is not? But since the constitution allows for amendment, but it's a shame that after taking a lot of resources to present this bill, we are still going back to use the same taxpayers' money and nobody is going to be found culpable of ensuring that what we have do not work, because what we are doing as PIB is not something new. It is practiced somewhere else. So what we're saying is that even reviewing other people's documents, existing institutions, or how private entity works as a government, as a people, and as a 369 member of the Senate, 109 member of the Senate plus 360 counterpart in the House of Rep, has failed us. That's the sincere truth. And if it were to be you and I that were given a responsibility to take, and we fail in this responsibility, our employers will fine us.
Right.
That's the sincere truth. So what is done now is what we call in our local palace, they call return job. And when you have a return job back to your mechanic or to your whoever you're missing, you don't pay. But in our own case, we are going to do a return job, and these guys are going to also pull again from the resources that is meager. It's unfortunate, and I feel the member of National Assembly to feel ashamed of themselves for producing a document that under 1 month we are beginning to bring out the loopholes.
A document that, as according to the president, was unbalanced and didn't reflect geographical representation, which is, and they know that this is what they are there for. You are there to represent your people, and yet you couldn't reflect that on a document.
Exactly, which is the conversation we've been having from time immemorial, that do they really understand why they are there? Because you are there to represent a people. I mean, that's literally your primary responsibility. That's the only reason why you're sitting in those hollow chambers. So if you have a document that we believe that all of you have had a lot of conversation over, you've had arguments, you've had conversations, you have to make compromises, debates, a lot of mudslinging, a lot of money spent, because that is very important, because now we're saying that we're broke. A lot of money has been spent on it, and then in the end it doesn't reflect the interest of your people. I'm sorry, what are you doing there exactly? Right. Can you really justify the cost for your employment? Because that, for me, is your primary responsibility, representing and reflecting the wishes of your people. But if what we're seeing now in just a month into this act, the question is what's going to happen by December? Are we going to have another review? Are we going to have another amendment? And is this going to be a back and forth that will still keep costing us money? Because I'm sorry, I'm very particular about the money, because we keep talking about us being broke. But for me, I think that the people at the National Assembly really need to take a step back to look at what their proper charter is in terms of why they are where they are today. Understanding the fact that your primary responsibility, and their only responsibility whatsoever, is that they have to represent the people that put them there. The interest of the people that put them there. So if you've been able to put together a document that is falling short of that, the question is, why do you still have your employment?
Big question. You wanted to say something earlier before he picked it up.
There is because some of us grew up in the street and in the village, there is this popular song that says "Atini Problemu." I was taking my time few hours ago to study the board of directors of Aramco. Aramco is Arabian American Oil Corporation, and I discovered that if you look at it from the chairman of the corporation to the least person, they are not what you just call business moguls. They are men that are established in the private sectors. They are men in the cabinet that are involved in policies and what have you. And when I look at the caliber of people that were there, both Arabians and foreigners, you will see that there is no way Aramco will not be making profit a year in, year out. Of course. Because it is run as a proper business. With every sense of respect to Dr. Pius Akinyelure, who happens to have worked in Mobil Corporation as part of that board, I am afraid the rest of board members do not have any business there. And the problem, as I say, the problem, what I say is that when we constituted NDDC, and we are all fighting about these representation from all political zones, as we speak today, can we mention any state in the oil producing region that has enjoyed what NDDC stands for? We created presidential initiative on Northeast. Have we seen anybody from the northeastern state that are benefited by having northeasterners on this panel? So the question we ask ourselves is, should serious entities like NNPC Incorporation continue to be for political patronage, or should be a true sense of business as it were? Right. And you ask yourself that expanding it to 13, 14, is it because we want to ensure that it is operational and functional, or is for us to ensure that we continue political patronage? Say, for example, the president is saying you want to remove Minister for Petroleum and Minister for Finance from that board because their members, their directors in those ministries are directors on those boards, and they want them to be executive directors. So as such, there will be issue in terms of oversight function from both ministries. So you ask yourself, the executive director from Ministry of Finance will take brief from Minister of Finance. The money that is accruing from Ministry of Finance, from NNPC, will form part of what the country saves as money. Either you like it or not, the Minister for Petroleum will also have one way or the other in terms of policy or day-to-day on activity. But as a decoy, you have had Minister for Petroleum Resources, happens to be Mr. President, his deputy happens to be Mr. President Silva, and also the Minister for Finance as a member, unspoken member, and you have these executive directors with political non-executive directors of about 11. At the end of the day, are we creating a business? Because if an MP is supposed to be a business or a joint venture is supposed to generate money, I think our interest should be to get people that are already knowledgeable in that industry, and that have trajectory in business environment that have been profitable.
So because it is being politicized, those positions, it is hampering the business itself.
Of course, we are not doing business, because what we are doing now is that we are doing patronage. You have called a politician that has lost elections severally to come and become a chairman of a board. You will see very soon, whoever becomes the Senate president or whoever becomes the House will be ensuring that their village people, see what's happening in the NDDC. Everybody is fighting to become the chairman of NDDC because they know it's a cash cow. And we have a history in this country whereby people that help government agencies as politicians are never accountable. And yet we are creating a new industry. Did you see Dangote calling himself the CEO of Dangote Oil? Why did he go and bring those Indians to come and run all his business for him? Because business is business. Governance is governance. Aramco is a model that works. British Petroleum is a model that works. No companies. Yes, government must have political interest in all those businesses, but we must have right people there. We must have captain of industry that are successful and have done things that are done well, not political jobbers. And yet, we say the amendment is good. At every point in time, I keep asking ourselves, is it that all over this country, we do not have qualified business persons or petroleum engineers or technocrats or board chairmen that can function well in government offices? Look at Aruma Ote when she was in a SEC or NSC. Look at how wonderful the woman performed. So why must we continue to look for people that have failed even in business or in politics and patronize them? Because this expansion for me is to ensure that we have more people from political zone. It is not about the business. So it's not about the revenue.
It is not going to put a spinner to what the PIA is intended to achieve.
What has NDDC has done to us? Who that expansion help? Now you have dissolved, you have removed Ninefe, you have put acting director, we are choosing who that will help. What has it done to us as an economy? What has it done to the Niger Deltans that their money is being used to fund this ministry? You have Ministry of Petroleum Resources, you have Ministry of Niger Delta, you have NDDC, and yet what we do is political patronage. Instead of putting the right peg in the right hole, we want to patronize our chronics, we want to empower them so that when they go to
village. But people keep asking for this representation.
Yes, we need to have it, but not politicians.
But we also need to look for a keyword, competence. Right. Which is something that is not at the front burner of most selections in this country, if we have to.
Which is what he's talking about.
Which is what he's talking about. So yes, competence is a very key word that we have to look at, and not just settling people politically or saying that, okay, you know what, you're my friend. I remember some years ago you interviewed me in TVC. I'm now the president. Come ahead, come ahead, NPC. Would you take the job? Would you take the job?
I will take it.
So that's what we're saying. So yes, so the key word, so the key word is competence, and that's something that we haven't quite seen so far in how this country has been run at various levels. I mean, we're just talking about the National Assembly and this particular subject that led to this conversation. Competence. Can you say that you're a competent lawmaker when certain loopholes are being found just off the bat? Can you say you're competent? All of you, can you say you're competent? And can you say that you're competent at various levels? To say that, okay, either you're elected or you're appointed into some part of the government. Can you beat your chest and say that, yes, you're properly competent for this role? Are you surrounding yourself with competent people? Even though if you're not competent, why are you listening to advice from the competent people that you have around you? So that's, for me, is the main key word. Either we have people from all the political zones or from all the states. Are they competent people? Because either we like it or not, even the business of government itself, not just NNPC, is a business. We have to run it like a business. He mentions Saudi Aramco, the UAE, the way they run the Emirates and all of that. People, they run the nations.
As a business.
As a business. And until we start to see the business of government as a true business, I'm afraid that we will keep going in circles with this entire conversation.
Will we ever get to that point? Because we seem to have a political coloration for every single thing that we do in this country.
We will get there when the followers, so to say, with every sense of apologies, begin to get things right. The moment we begin to see a Congo of rice every 4 months as an aberration, the moment we begin to ask, what are your pedigree, what have you done the last 4 years, and why do you think we should trust you with 4 years? That's when we begin to get, because you find out, I tell you, even close to us during the last election, somebody was asking me that, have I voted? I said, yes. He said, which party? I said, my vote is my choice. Don't ask me. He said, I won't vote for your party, except you give me 1,000. And I said, so you want to say, I said, okay, if I give 1,000 now, will you vote for my candidate? They said, of course, just give me, I'll take out my card. So until we get to that point, where we do not say sugar back kasa for people that does not know anything, when we put the right persons there, and kudos to this president, you know, as much as we try to see what it is has not done, it takes effrontery to tell the National Assembly after less than 2 months that, guys, what you have done is wrong. Either we like it or not.
Right.
If the National Assembly are supposed to provide the framework, the constitutional work for how a new venture, a new incorporation should work. So it shows clearly that people that are there, if we are going to start any privatization, we should not give it to them. Because we just tested them with NNPC, upstream, downstream, and what have you. And they have failed the executive, not Nigerians. And if they have failed executive, it shows that future assignment, we should be very, very careful.
How about
to
previous
these guys.
assignments?
I'm just trying to cut them some slack. So it is obvious now that the president, I salute the president for coming out to the presidency that saying, guys, you need to look at this law again and do X, Y, Z. But again, I ask, all those town hall sessions that we have on this PIB, where were they? What was the executive submission in terms of what they expected from this PIB? Why do we need to go another route of, because you are going to engage another set of technocrats, bureaucrats, to start working on all these pieces and pieces and bring them back together. Who is going to bear the brunt? People are crying. There is no money in the land. The land is a bit, people are gagged. Inflation is on a rise. A gas cylinder as of January that is a 1,000 is now 7,000 naira. Electricity that is 26 naira in January is now almost 53 naira. So you ask yourself, people are crying for better life every day. Then we have pushing money where they're not supposed to be. So on this PIB, I salute the executive, but nonetheless, the executive priorities, I think, are not supposed to be priorities for any serious business-minded economy. Then again, National Assembly, I've said this severally on this platform, that they should stop headline-grabbing activities. Do what you see. National Assembly is not doing us any favor because we are paying them to do this job. It's a full-time job. Oh. They get allowance for reading newspaper. Oh. They get allowance for watching TV. Oh. But nonetheless, they still make laws that are incoherent, that are insufficient to even run a private entity that we tend to run as an economy.
You mentioned something that I want Dipo to harp on, which has to do with the role of the people. Demanding competence, accountability, and ensuring that they do not see or encourage the political coloration to everything that we see happening in the country. And then you also mentioned the fact that people are hungry, angry, and all of it. Shouldn't that push them to begin to demand this accountability that we are talking about? Shouldn't that push them to begin to ask critical questions and make demands of their representatives at the National Assembly? Yes,
ideally it should. And we've had this conversation on
and off.
On and off. And yes, so I would say that for me, it's two ways. Yes, ideally it should get people angry to demand for better. It should spur them to vote incompetent people. However, like I say, which is also not an excuse, that the political class of this nation have successfully, and I say successfully with all sense of respect, that they have been able to weaponize poverty in this country. To say that, so you keep the people poor enough so that the next election, even though he's not running for political office, but you feel comfortable enough to ask him for 1,000 naira so he can vote for his candidates. Now, the person he voted for will likely not serve him any direct benefit, but you still expect him to churn out 1,000 naira so you can vote for his candidate. How does that make sense? So that tells you how deep-seated the issue of poverty is and how it has affected a lot of people. Either you like it or not, people have to eat. and you're saying people should vote their conscience. A hungry man, I'm not sure what his conscience is like.
Right.
Because really, we have to be the stomach before the heart, because it's somebody that is alive that you're guilting the conscience. So we have to face that reality that they have been able to successfully weaponize poverty. But that being said, I believe that the onus is for a lot of us that have this self-awareness, and I say that with every sense of humility, to also look into our environment and find people that we can communicate with. We have people that come around us, the plumbers, the carpenters, the masons, the artisans, the people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, to see how we can have conversations with them, to see how we can educate them on being politically conscious. Because in the end, the 5,000 naira, the 1,000 naira, to 2,000 naira you get today to vote for somebody is 20 million naira that is going to steal from your account. Is the future of your children that is going to steal. Is your healthcare that he's going to that the person is going to steal.
Right.
So it's not enough for us to keep having these conversations here, but we need to go out there. Whoever and the people we come in contact with, we need to have these conversations with them for them to understand the true implication and the true cost of these things. When you say that, okay, you're giving them a bag of rice or a loaf of bread for them to vote the certain party into office. So it is important that we all do and play our own part in this entire conversation.
Absolutely, and that's the fine place to leave this conversation this morning. Thank you, gentlemen, strategy consultant Dipo Oyewole and in-house analyst Obaniyi Akinwale, for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.